What if the currency in your wallet is losing its global power faster than anyone in Washington wants to admit? This is not a hypothetical scenario, and it is not some fringe economic theory being pushed by internet commentators looking for attention. Right now, behind closed doors at the Federal Reserve, inside the walls of the Treasury Department, and within the highest levels of international finance, a very real and very uncomfortable conversation is taking place about the future of the United States dollar. And if you are paying attention to the signals, you will notice that the people in charge are saying one thing publicly, while their actions tell a completely different story. Let us start with what is actually happening in the global economy right now. Central banks around the world are dumping United States treasuries at a pace not seen in decades, according to recent data from the Treasury International Capital Report. Foreign holdings of American debt have been declining steadily, with major economies like China and Japan reducing their exposure quarter after quarter. This is not normal behavior from nations that have historically been the largest buyers of American debt. And when foreign governments stop buying your debt, someone has to pick up the slack. That someone has increasingly become the Federal Reserve itself, which has been forced into a position where it must absorb what the rest of the world no longer wants. Now, here is where things become even more uncomfortable. The Federal Reserve has spent the last 2 years claiming that inflation is under control and that the economy is on solid footing. Yet their own actions suggest they are preparing for something very different. Reports indicate that Fed officials have been quietly discussing scenarios that involve emergency liquidity measures and potential interventions in currency markets. These are not the actions of an institution that believes everything is fine. And while the mainstream financial press continues to repeat talking points about a soft landing and resilient growth, the exposed cracks in the system are becoming harder to ignore. Consider what is happening with the BRICS nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, along with a growing list of new member countries, have been accelerating their efforts to create alternative payment systems that bypass the dollar entirely. Just this year, reports suggest that over a dozen countries have either joined or applied to join the BRICS economic alliance. This is not merely a symbolic political gesture. These nations are actively developing mechanisms to settle trade in their own currencies, cutting the dollar out of transactions worth trillions of dollars annually. And the speed at which this is happening has caught many Western analysts off guard. Now, we must address the role of American political instability in all of this. The ongoing legal battles surrounding Donald Trump have created a level of institutional uncertainty that reverberates far beyond American borders. Foreign governments and central banks do not just look at interest rates and inflation numbers when deciding where to park their money. They look at stability. They look at whether a nation can govern itself without constant political crisis. And what they are seeing right now is a country where the justice system is being used as a political weapon, where Congress cannot agree on basic spending measures, and where the threat of government shutdowns has become a regular occurrence. Sources familiar with the matter suggest that several major sovereign wealth funds have begun quietly diversifying away from dollar-denominated assets, citing American political risk as a primary concern. This is not speculation. This is institutional money making calculated decisions based on what they observe. And what they observe is a nation that appears to be tearing itself apart from the inside. The Federal Reserve finds itself trapped between impossible choices. If they keep interest rates high to fight inflation, they risk triggering a debt crisis, as the cost of servicing the national debt becomes unsustainable. If they cut rates to ease the burden, they risk reigniting inflation and further weakening the dollar. On the global stage, there is no clean exit from this situation. The national debt has now surpassed $34 trillion, and the interest payments alone now exceed what America spends on defense. This is not a sustainable trajectory, and everyone in Washington knows it. Yet publicly, they continue to pretend that everything is manageable. Behind the scenes, however, the preparation tells a different story. Reports indicate that several federal agencies have been updating their contingency plans for currency instability. The Treasury Department has reportedly been in discussions with major financial institutions about systemic risk scenarios that were previously considered unthinkable. And the Federal Reserve Bank of New York has been running stress tests that specifically model scenarios involving rapid dollar depreciation and foreign capital flight. These are not the actions of institutions that believe the dollar is safe and sound. They are the actions of institutions preparing for a world where American financial dominance can no longer be taken for granted. What makes this moment particularly dangerous is the coordination happening among America's rivals. China and Russia have dramatically increased their gold reserves over the past several years. Central bank gold purchases globally have hit record levels not seen since the 1960s. And multiple countries have begun repatriating their gold reserves from Western vaults, bringing their physical assets back under their own control. When nations start hoarding hard assets and pulling their gold home, it is a signal. It is a signal that they no longer trust the system as it currently exists. And the system as it currently exists is built entirely on faith in the United States dollar. None of this means the dollar will collapse tomorrow, but it does mean the foundation is shifting in ways that the average American is not being told about. The financial media continues to focus on daily stock movements and quarterly earnings reports, while ignoring the tectonic shifts happening beneath the surface. The politicization of financial information has made it nearly impossible for ordinary people to get a clear picture of what is actually happening. What remains clear is that the current trajectory is unsustainable. The only question is how long the system can hold together before the pressure becomes too great to contain, and whether those in power will tell you the truth before it becomes impossible to hide.